ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णुः गुरुर्देवो महेश्वरः गुरुः साक्षात् परं ब्रह्म तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। अखण्डमण्डलाकारं व्याप्तं येन चराचरं तत्पदं दर्शितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। Welcome everybody to the continuation of discussion on Ashtadashavidya Sthanas. I hope it made some sort of impression. It has left some sort of impression on all of you. In the previous session, we did discuss about uh, an overview of Ashtadashavidya Sthanas is what I can call it. Of course, there's plenty to know about each and every Vidyasthana as well. Um, and I was told, I was very happy. I was speaking with Jayalakshmi Mami, and she told me that many of them have got one line that has remained with them, one line that has stuck with them, has been, you should approach it from the periphery, not from the core. I'm very glad that particular line and that particular idea related to Ashtadashavidya Sthanas has remained with us. Um, now, today there are a few questions that have already been sent by Aparnaji, so I think we can take one by one. And if there are any questions from the participant side as well, or from the audience side as well, we are good to take them as well as we go along. There is nothing that holds you back from asking the question. You can either type it or raise your hand and ask the question. So you're free to do that. First question is
Sir, shall I start from somewhere in between instead
yeah,
of going in the order?
yes,
Sorry.
I'm looking at the question paper now, and she wants
Sir,
to
like a
she wants to
typical
change
student,
the.
you're going from first question, but like a typical teacher, I will try and trip you.
Oh my God! Yeah, please.
Sir, the tree of Hindu scriptures presents the Vedas, Upanishads, question 6, Itihasas, Puranas, Agamas, and Darshanas as interconnected traditions.
Yeah,
How would you represent these relationships visually without turning them into an infographic, which AI tends to do?
yeah. That's a very tough artistic question. So we may have to be a little bit more creative. If I have to be very cheeky with my answer, then you have to be creative and do not take the help of AI. It's the first answer. But anyway, keeping that aside, um, see, when we say a tree, um, a tree might be too difficult to hold all of them together. Whereas we already have seen how the Vidyasthanas have been presented in the form of a human being. At least the Veda and Vedanga, we have seen it in the form of a human being. So if we can present the Veda and Vedanga in the form of a human being, like how where exactly Shiksha, where is Chandas, where is Nirukta, where is Jyotisha, Kalpa, all these things. Imagine a person whom we will name it as Veda Purusha. So the Veda Purusha itself, all four of them put together will be one, will be considered as one. That Vyasa means, that classification is only for the easier understanding for ourselves. Otherwise, Veda means it is always one. So all of it put together is considered as Veda. Uh, Now, if that can be represented as a human, and if we can keep the human being at the center, at the core, and if that human being, along with the different organs, that is Veda and Vedanga, if they can be put in the center in the form of either a geometrical figure like a yantra, maybe a mandala kind of thing, where Veda will be at the core and the Vedangas will have six petals around them, something like that. That can also be explored. The remaining ones will obviously come around it. And the last two, that is Itihasa, Purana, and Dharma Shastra, they form the box, the square. So if you can have the square, and then if we think within that box, that then we have three boxes. Usually, whenever they write a mandala, the common rule of any yantra writing is that it should have sattva, rajas, and tamas. So basically, that is how yantra works. Every yantra should have the outer boundary as sattva, rajas, and tamas. Ideally, what it speaks is I'm sorry, I'm slightly deviating from the topic, but just to give an insight into how actually mandala works in Tantra Shastras or in our agamas and everywhere. The sattva, rajas, and tamas represent the not in this order. While writing, it will be in the reverse order: tamas, rajas, and sattva. So this tamas, rajas, and sattva from the outside, when we see, will be represented as black, red, and white. Okay, in the colors. Now, these trigunas are the ones who are responsible for. They are the ones who are responsible for the entire function of this world. Now, what is more important for us to understand is the thing that we are discussing, or the devata that we have in mind, the core is beyond the trigunas. It is not within the framework of trigunas. It is beyond that. So in order to represent them, we will have them. So what we can do, instead of having sattva, rajas, tamas here, that works well in the representation of a deity. But here we are trying to represent Ashtadashavidya sthanas. The core of Ashtadashavidya sthanas is Veda and Vedanta. And around the Vedanga comes the four Upavedas. Now, beyond those Upavedas are the six darshanas. And beyond those six darshanas are the squares which I am talking about. That is Dharma Shastra. And then we have Itihasa and Purana. So if we can have in this format, it will be an easy way of representing. And it will not be too much informative as well. But at the same time, it breaks the regular, tree kind of illustration. And it gives us when we look at it, the interconnectivity is needless to be told, because it is all within, everything is coming within the framework of Dharma Shastra and Itihasa and Purana. That's basically our go-to text. Wherever we have a doubt, all we need to do is refer our Dharma Shastras, refer our Itihasas and Puranas. 99% of the times we will be sorted out. We don't need to dig deeper and try to find out answers in the Vedas. I mean, I'm not discouraging people from getting into the Vedas, but all I'm saying is there is a beautiful saying in the Shastra: Arkechen madhuvindeta kimartham parvatam vraje. When you can actually find honey in the village, why would you want to climb the mountain in order to fetch that? So when you have everything embedded, incorporated in Dharma Shastra, Itihasa, and Purana, then I think it is pretty much easy. Dharma Shastra is nothing but the essence of the Vedas, that is Shruti, and the same thing which has been represented in the Smritis in a rather different format. Shrutis speak in a certain format, and Smritis speak in a certain format. And we also need a role model kind of thing. A proforma, a blueprint is required. That's why we have Sadachara. So these are the three important pillars of Dharma Shastra. These are the pramanas for Dharma, basically. So we can imagine Dharma as a trinity. Whenever we draw Dharma, if we can present it as a triangle, a separate triangle, if we are working only specifically on Dharma Shastra can be presented as completely based on Smriti and Sadachara at the bottom. On one side, we have Smritis, the collection of all the words and the documents of the rishis and acharyas. And on the other side, we have the documentation of the way they have lived their life as well. That is Sadachara. And we still see the same kind of activities and customs and traditions being followed. So all those customs, traditions, festivals, etc., all of them fall under Sadachara. And Smritis are Manusmriti, Parashara Smriti, Yagnivalkya, plenty of Smritis. And all of them are deriving their source from the Vedas. So Shruti will be at the top. So you can imagine Dharma Shastra as a triangle. It's a very plain example that I'm giving. But of course, we can put the tadka of art into it. But if we can identify what forms the core of each and every Ashtadasha, each and every Vidyasthana, and if that can be brought out separately, individually, then we will have a Samashti and Vyashti. Samashti is all put together. Vyashti is individual representation of Ashtadashavidya sthanas.
So just to take off from here, how would you represent Smriti visually, since it's the lifestyle and what they embodied is easy to represent? So, we always put that, our AI
And
generates that manuscripts. But how do we represent sound, rhythm, movement, um, oral transmission? How can that be represented through a layered approach in art?
right, right. I have a few points to share on this because many a times what happens is whenever we try to represent Vedas, we simply present it as manuscripts, four manuscripts written as Rig Veda, Yajurveda, Samaveda, Atharvaveda. I'm very sure even AI comes up with the same sort of age-old image, which is not the right representation of the of Shruti or Vedas, because we are calling Veda as Apaurushaya, where there is no human intervention. So if we show it as manuscripts, it very much draws attention away from its core idea of being Apaurushaya. So it should be presented in a different format there. And other representations would also include rishis. Veda means, put a picture of a rishi, then it becomes a Veda, or it represents a Veda. Not necessarily. I mean, we can break that approach and see it from this angle where it is the eternal sounds that are emerging, eternal sounds that are always existing, only accessible to those who are in that state. Those who are at the state of a rishi, it is accessible to them. Otherwise, it is not accessible. So somehow we need to bring the idea of Apaurushaya to Shruti. Similarly, Smriti is where we can actually have the picture of rishis, because it's something that they have recalled and recollected and memorized from whatever they have experienced in the state of a rishi. So that connection can be showed very easily. And as a combination of these two, Sadachara can be shown. Sadachara is basically every common person being involved in various activities. That is what Sadachara is all about. For Smriti, the best representation would be how the rishis would be codifying, uh, I mean, showing a rishi in a samadhi sthiti, where they are recalling everything that they have experienced, or being in that state, and immediately in the next stage, they are able to recollect and document it or pass it on to the next generation orally, because there was no written documentation ever that has happened. Therefore, oral representation is what we can highlight, and that also gives the pushti to Shruti Parampara. It's called as Shruti, which means it is an oral tradition. So in this way, it can be represented. Does that give any idea, or is it?
It's perfect. I think now we should leave it to the artist to work a little hard. You can't spoon feed. But this is beautiful because this is what we wonder. How did we get this image of a manuscript? Because it's a much later day
Later development.
development.
I think if we see any images where the acharyas are there, you take the example of Dakshinamurti. There are no manuscripts in Dakshinamurti's photograph. The Dakshinamurti is sitting there, and there are Shishyas sat in front of him. So the same image can be made even more articulate in terms of how Shruti itself, how the idea of Veda, or how the abstract of Veda is presented in a more regulatory form, in a more do's and don'ts. It has been beaten down into this format. Uh, okay, this might be a very brute example, but still, Shruti is vegetables found in farm, agricultural farm. Smriti is the ones that are found in packaged format. I mean, in provision stores. Sadachara is what we get in our plate, the prepared food meal. That is Sadachara. People will hang me for giving such kind of examples, but you got the idea. Because see, when we say Sadachara, it is not missing the Shruti aspect, because it is the same element that has been cooked here, that has been presented in a different way. And what is the slight difference that exists between Shruti and Smriti is, it is much more in an organized manner, where you don't have to go and do all the cultivating, farming, and etc. etc. It is already been done. That krishi has already been done. And the product is already present to us in the shelf. They have presented in the shelf where they have marked it. This is, and they have weighed it as well. So similarly, Smriti is everything that we require for a beautiful life, which is pretty much weighed in. They have weighed it properly, and they know that if it is consumed in this amount for this long, it will fetch you this kind of result. We may receive that information. We have the smritis, we may receive that information, but if I don't act properly upon that information, then I will be at fault. So that is basically telling us, we can have all the shastras, we can have all the vidyasthanas, until and unless it comes down to application in our day-to-day life, it will not happen. So that is Dharma Shastra basically.
There's one question somebody has asked.
Oh, okay. There's no questions here.
I saw one. I have a few. Pooja ji, you want to unmute and ask? Pooja. Okay, so I think they're regarding classical dance, she says. Sir, if each of the major darshanas were expressed as a distinct artistic style, how would Sankhya, Yoga, Nyaya, and Vedanta differ in visual or aesthetic language?
Okay. Is this a question that you have written? You send that assignment. It's part of the assignment question. Distinct artistic style. Ooh. I think it's better to view it from this angle that each and every one of them may not have distinctive style. It may come in a pair. Like Sankhya and Yoga have almost similar style in terms of their approach, in terms of their representation. And Nyaya and Vaisheshika follow the same suit. They both are more into physical world, and they draw the bridge, or they build the bridge for us from physics to metaphysics. That is the idea of Nyaya and Vaisheshika. Whereas Sankhya and Yoga, they very much, Sankhya focuses heavily on the evolution and dissolution part of things, whereas Yoga focuses on the place where we need to begin the journey. So basically, it starts on mind. So it follows the approach of a trek. So many people sometimes, they think that trekking means only to climb. No, you have to come back as well. So similarly here as well, it's evolution and dissolution. Both of them are discussed in Sankhya and Yoga. So the idea of evolution and dissolution of anything. The best example would be water turning into ice, and if you keep it for long, it will again turn into water, kind of cyclic thing. So that would be Sankhya and Yoga. Whereas Nyaya and Vaisheshika is more on the reasoning side. When we say reasoning, it usually involves the physics part of things, how we analyze each and every single element and try to identify that what appears, what meets our eyes is not always the truth. There is something beyond what meets our eyes. And Nyaya and Vaisheshika very beautifully. I'm just trying to condense the entire Nyaya Shastra and Vaisheshika Shastra into these capsules. So please don't take home thinking that this is all Nyaya Shastra is all about. No, it is not. It has got plenty more to offer, but the simpler way of understanding Nyaya Shastra, so that it will give us that confidence to approach. We don't have to demonize these Vidyasthanas because they do appear like demons. When we are not aware of them, they appear like, oh, I don't want to hear any of them. It sounds very precarious to us, all those things. So I'm trying to not demonize the Vidyasthanas, therefore presenting it in such a way. And when it comes to Mimamsa and Vedanta, basically, it's nothing but the interpretation of Veda. Mimamsa means to know the exact interpretation or the intended meaning, or basically the core, the heart of Veda is understood through Mimamsa. So decoding of Veda can be presented as Mimamsa, that is Mimamsa and Purva Mimamsa and Uttara Mimamsa, basically Vedanta and Mimamsa. Nyaya and Vaisheshika as the bridges from physical world to metaphysics. and then Sankhya and Yoga that work on our own being, our existence. Basically, it talks about our existence. So this is how they are distinct from one another. Uh, each and every one of them have got a very different approach. Even though they are trying to approach the same truth, uh, their beginning point is different. See, Mimamsa and Vedanta, they begin at an advanced stage. Nyaya and Vaisheshika, they begin at a basic stage. Whereas Sankhya and Yoga, they begin at intermediate stage. Okay. So nobody needs to have any sort of an qualm about it. And oh no, I want to be at the advanced level. No, no. Even if you follow the basic level, it will eventually land you there. It is just a tired kind of grouping. Um, it's just like, in some art, I don't know much about art, so I should refrain from giving that example. In some of the places, they would have focused only on the basic colors, just to highlight the basic colors or just to bring out the base emotion. They would have done it. In some, artistic expressions, we find that the intention is something beyond what meets our eye. They may have shown a couple of birds, but the artist never meant to show the birds. That can also happen. I mean, it's quite normal for us to understand. And similarly, there will be something in between as well, where we try to shift or show people with a certain animal's face as well. Now, this AI does all these fantastic things, nowadays. So, I mean, we don't have to rely on it, but I'm just saying that how it keeps on representing such kind of ideas. So that can be the basis of understanding how the Shad Darshanas, because all of them are called as Darshana, means the experience. The experience of what? The experiencing the truth. The truth is the Veda, and the Veda possesses the truth. Navedum Vedamikyahu Vede Vedo Navidyate is what they said. What we consider as Veda is dismissed as Veda. They don't call it as Veda. I mean, what is Veda? Paratma Vindate Yena Savedo Veda Uchyate. That which enables us to realize our true form is called as Veda, to put it in very simple terms. So, therefore, we can present it that Darshana is the experience of true self. So, Darshana is not different from the Veda in its experience part. But however, darshana cannot be accessed immediately. So it requires a hierarchy. So that hierarchy is built and based on the methodology which is used to build that hierarchy, we have 6 different darshanas. So it can be paired into 2. So we will have 3 distinct styles. I think for Nyaya and Vaisheshika, if they can show something like they say Gandhavati Prithivi, or there is something called as Ishvaravada. Okay. Very beautiful concept. You can read on it, or someday we can have a small discussion on that as well. Or whoever is interested, I think we can speak with them as well. Ishvaravada is a very, very popular debate, an episode that happens in Nyaya and Vaisheshika, where they try to infer the existence of Ishvara. They use proper inferences like Anumana Vakyam. Okay. So, how they have shown it in the format of cause and effect. So, we see only the effect and how we slowly come to the understanding that there must be a cause behind it. So, that theory can be very much presented as Nyaya and Vaisheshika. And that style of art can be shown. And we can immediately give it a reference saying that this is how Nyaya and Vaisheshika usually work. Because 90% of Nyaya and Vaisheshika is nothing but Anumana. It is inference. They rely heavily on inference. So if we can, pictorial representation, if we can have a pictorial representation of all the pramanas, we have covered all the darshans. You just represent all the 6 pramanas and you have got all the darshanas covered. The toughest one will be again Aptavakya or Shabda, which is basically very difficult because Shabda means it's not sound. It is Aptavakya. Aptavakya is the words of an accomplished person. Accomplished person here refers to the rishis, or basically Veda. So again, that representation might be slightly different, but apart from that, we have 5 more pramanas, validation tools that we use. Pratyaksha, where we use our indriyas, that can be represented. Anumana, inference. Upamana, comparative or similarity based. And then arthapatti, assumption, from one thing to another thing, how we assume and come to a conclusion. And anupalabdhi is how the absence actually gives rise to the existence of few things. So in this way, we can represent. The pramanas can be a wonderful way of representation. This is one approach. There is one more idea that I want to mention. All darshanas follow a simple format. All darshanas are built on 4 important pillars. The 4 pillars of all darshanas are pramana, prameya, prama, and pramata. So basically, pramana means the validation tools. Prameya is the thing that we want to perceive. Validation tool for perception is called as pramana. The thing that we must perceive is called as prameya. The actual perception is called as prama. The one who perceives is called as pramata. So this also can be represented.
Can you give an example, sir?
Like the person who is very serious about understanding his true form or true nature, he will be called as a pramata. Then where does he begin his quest? He needs to realize that he needs to get the clarity that who am I and why am I not what it appears to be. So he needs to have the perfect idea of jiva. He needs to have the perfect idea about jagat. He also needs to have the perfect idea that he is neither jiva nor jagat, but he is brahma. So that is prameya part. And pramana, I have already mentioned. What validation tool do I need to use? Because if it is invalid, if our experiences are invalid, then it makes no sense at all. So the validation can be showed with various examples for pratyaksha. For example, how do I know that this is a mobile phone? A simple thing. How do I know that this is a mobile phone? Because I can see through my eyes. So similarly, if we can give examples for each and every sense organ, then it becomes pratyaksha pramana. Aksha means indriyas. Pratyaksha means individual indriyas are responsible for perception of information. That is called as pratyaksha.
Sir, you mentioned that Sankhya describes creation through the unfolding of the 25 tattvas, and this would be largely relevant to all of the Ashtadashavidya. What artistic form best conveys this progression from subtle principles to the material world?
Fantastic. Oh, that's a very good thing. In fact, when it comes to representation in an artistic way, I'm not saying this because I'm very fond of Sankhya Darshan. I'm saying this because that is truth. That is the truth. There are not just 25 tattvas that Sankhya talks about. It also talks about 60 elements. It's fantastic to go through all those 60 elements, and if we can just show those 60 elements, then it gives a proper picture of how the entire creation is self-sustainable, how entire creation functions on its own. But if we want to look at it from an individual perspective, in one miniature version of it, we can 60 might be too bigger a number. So 25, we can bring it down to 25. Then we have Prakriti and Purusha. Then we have Mahat or Buddhi, intellect. Then we have Ahankara. And from Ahankara, it branches out. We have 5 Tanmatras, 5 Mahabhutas. We have 5 Jnanendriyas, 5 Karmendriyas, and Manas. So 11 Indriyas, 5 Mahabhutas, 5 Tanmatras, that is 21. 22nd is Ahankara, 23rd is Buddhi, 24th is Prakriti or Mula Prakriti, 25th is Purusha. And if you go to yoga, you add one more to it, Ishvara is the 26th. That's all. These are the elements that they talk about. So very, very simple. And the best way to represent that would be to have Prakriti and Purusha as dual head, equal heads. We can't have Purusha here and then Prakriti. Usually people make that kind of mistake. It's never like that, because Prakritim Purusham Cheti Vidhyanadi Ubhavapi. And they are looking at one another. They are not like looking elsewhere. They are looking at one another, Prakriti and Purusha. From there, it is not from, it can be showed like, basically, Prakriti is considered as Jada. It's immovable. Um, but that is the one which is responsible for the entire creation. How does it do the creation? How does it create? It creates because of the borrowed energy from the Chaitanya. Chaitanya is Purusha. So that can be presented like, how something is shining. But that shine is actually borrowed from the light falling on it from the sun. Something like that. Okay. That can be represented. Or if you want to go a little more personal, then Sankhya talks about the three dukkhas, the most famous tapatraya that we use in Kannada as well. So that those three dukkhas can be presented. How we associate ourselves with dukkha. Uh, Basically, it's an illusion that we are living in. So all these, the ideas of illusion, Maya, etc., very easily it can be beaten down to these things. It can be brought out. But what we need to do is we also need to keep in mind that how it is going to make sense in terms of it cannot only be one specific topic. It has to have a meaningful contribution to the entire theme as well. And the most important thing that which I was discussing with Jalakshmi Mami as well over the phone a couple of days ago is we need to bring all of this under the roof of a temple, under the roof of a devalaya. Only then Gudiya Sambhrama will be apt to its name. So the next level will be to explore how can we show it in elements that are already existing in Devalaya, or how the elements that we present can become a part of Devalaya. That can also be the approach, which is quite easy to figure out. The difficult part is to decode how can we present Ashtadashavidya Sthanas. So Darshana's part, I think, is pretty much covered. You can have this kind of a representation. Uh, I'll give a simple example of how Darshana actually comes out, because there are so many great artists present here. So this may feel like too philosophical of a thought for them. Uh, See uh, if we have ever experienced a video game, and if we were asked to pass on that video game to our younger sibling, we would have had a very tough time dealing with it. In modern terms, that was very traumatic experience for us at that point of time, because my parents have asked me to pass on this video game to my younger sibling, kind of thing. But when we actually do pass on the video game to our younger sibling, we follow a certain unwritten rule. First, we sit them down, we give them a little history about it, we talk a great deal about it, and then we beat it down to the technical details. We tell them what this button represents, what this button does, etc., etc. And then we tell them how to play this game. So the do's and don'ts also are explained. And then we eventually end up saying that you just need to play it. Only then you will experience it. I cannot express it anymore. You need to experience it. So the job of any presentation is only till the do's and don'ts, in a way that it paves way for the experience. The experience itself, it is true that the experience has to be presented. But when it comes to presentation, you cannot present the experience itself. Experience can be presented to only to a certain extent. And that certain extent is what we call as Shastra. Because Shastra is the bridge that we have, which gives way for us to experience it. Experiencing is Darshan. Darshana means experience. Shastra is that bridge that we build. And the ingredients that we have for building that bridge is called as Tantra. So basically, this is the hierarchy: Tantra, Shastra, Darshana. So whenever we represent anything in, not just in an artistic form, even in words, we can only reach till Shastra level. I cannot go to the darshana level. So we just need to figure out if I am presenting it, if I am using this in a sentence, if I am mentioning it in few lines, uh, is it making sense or not? And is it enabling someone to actually experience that or not? That's all the valid question that we need to ask. I hope this made more sense so that in terms of
Yes,
presentation.
sir. It's very. I think every session, like our approach is changing. We may not have full understanding, but I think you're showing a direction which I think we have to, through the week and through our own study, have to explore. We can't expect you to, actually do the whole thing for us.
No, it's just that we can pick anything that fascinates us,
Mm.
anything. And I can assure you that if it is within the framework of Ashtadashavidya Sthanas, if it is within the framework of Bharatiya Jnana Parampara, it will definitely lead us towards the absolute bliss. I have no doubt about it. It could be anything. It's just that we need to figure out how we can do it. That's all.
Sir, you mentioned this the Devalaya.
Yeah.
So temple architecture follows agamic principles of proportion, orientation, and sacred geometry.
Mhm.
So suppose we don't take the temple as just a physical structure, and we don't take these agamic injunctions as for a physical place. But suppose we talk about proportion, orientation, and sacred geometry as sacred principles of
Mhm.
art, of thinking, of living. So, how can these three, that is proportion, orientation, and sacred geometry, be conveyed through art, but actually point to some higher value, aesthetic value system?
That's where I think our yantras do come in the play as well. They may not have a face. It's just mere lines that are drawn. But still, it is the abstraction of idea. So when I know what it is, when I have experienced it, then that experience can get expressed in either the form of an idol or in the form of lights. When it comes to proportion, there are two ways of approaching this. Uh, One is to follow the rules of geometry and proportion, symmetry to the T. Absolutely follow the principles. Another thing is an experimental thing. When I say experimental, it is less experimental, more experiential thing. So if I have experienced something, and then if I want to present it, how would I present it? I have the basic ingredients out there. If we observe the patterns, if we observe all the murtis, uh, the ones that are in the prakara, the ones that are usually found inside the sanctum, and one that is in the sanctum sanctorum, that is in Garbhagrivam, the proportion differs from each and every one of them. It's not the same. So if I that goes on to show the pradhanya and apradhanya there. Apradhanya in the sense gauna. So what is primary and what is secondary? So if we read this structure, then we will understand that the primary has to be, say for example, twice the size of secondary. So if we get this idea, this is the abstract that we are getting. So in this, using this abstracted idea, we can always present it. What I want to highlight will always get twice the size of what are the auxiliary things that are required as well. And if I want to present, this is very simple. Then, for example, maybe I'm drawing a house. No artist draws a house. Okay, only in high school we used to draw. Proper artists don't write houses and all. Yeah. So when I want to write or draw a house, and I not only want to show the house, but I also want to show who is the owner of the house. Now, automatically, the owner cannot be bigger than the house because it makes no sense. So the owner has to be in such a proportion where he is bigger than everyone else that are staying in the house. We cannot have a dog which is bigger than the owner of the house. So how we figure out that it should make sense. So similarly, when we observe the temple architecture as well, that sort of a idea of proportion is very much shown, and that is the same exact idea used in the yantra as well when they say Shodasha Dalam or Ashtadala or Shaddala. When they say Shaddala, there are only 6 petals. How wide should each and every petal be? So if it is 16, then automatically the size of the petal becomes smaller. As the number of petals increase, the size decreases. So in that way, we have to figure them out. That can be one approach. And when it comes to geometry and all, I think, as I said, we are heavily reliant on only one path, that is following the instructions to the T, unfortunately, because there is no experience of that. When a sculptor has to sculpt something, he needs to have the Devata Darshana himself. Then he would know how exactly the nose should be, eyes should be, etc., etc. When I don't have, at least what I need to do is I should rely on the authentic texts. The authentic texts have, and if someone wants to do a proper picture of Sri Rama, there might be hundreds of prototypes available. However, the original thing is mentioned in Ramayana, where Hanuman describes Rama. And if we can beat it down to the T, and if we can present it, then it would be a proper representation of Sri Rama. It can be in the form of a painting, it can be in the form of a sculpture.
We also have participants here who are writers. We have Pankaj ji, who's contributed a lot to many of our anthologies, and I think he will be writing. You are going to write. So, in terms of our itihasas, the way we approach writing in the modern day age, we already have the whole story in our head, and we write it out. They even in writing workshops, they say, get the whole structure, beginning, end, everything is like already, even maybe even artists, get it in, get the whole, then you start the work. But I don't think how are our itihasas, how are they, uh,
Same.
did they, know the beginning and the end? Did they know that Sri Rama will go into Jal Samadhi? And
Pana Vamalakam Yatha is what Valmiki writes in the beginning of Ramayana. How did he actually experience the entire Ramacharitam, entire Ramakatha? His Pana Vamalakam Yatha, like a gooseberry on his palm. So he was able to witness it, like how we can see and experience gooseberry completely if we hold it in our palm. Similarly, he experienced it. The major difference that exists in the approach that we see in Vidyasthanas and elsewhere is in Vidyasthanas, they rely heavily on samadhi. Whichever the work is, whether it is Ramayana, Mahabharata, Puranas, every single scripture that we have, or every single source that we have, they all say that before they wrote, they were in Sarvat Samadhi. So inevitably, we will find that. So that is the approach. And in Ramayana very clearly states that Prachinagreshu Darbheshu Dharmenanvekshate Gatim. So he sat down and he raised himself to that state of samadhi. And that's where he realized, or he witnessed, that is the right word. He witnessed every account unfold. And it was, then it becomes easier for him to present it. Because when it comes to presentation, one may even argue that did Valmiki experience the Sharad Rutu, the seasons that he describes in Ramayana as well? He may not have experienced to that detail in his samadhi, but if he gets the core idea, the core principle, then he knows how to present it, how to make it more presentable and appealing to the public. Because once we have the content, once we realize, once I have that experience, it depends how do I want to present it. See, when it comes to presentation, there are three types of words that are usually told in Shastra. One is kingly, friendly, lovely. These are the three things. That's how they classify. For those of them who are very particular about, those who are purists, for them it is called as Prabhu Samhita, Suhrit Samhita, and Kanta Samhita. So Prabhu Samhita is basically how the Vedas appear. They don't rely too much on beating around the bush, building the plot, a premise, etc., etc. Because you talked about writing, so sometimes we need to build a preface, we need to build a premise, and then we introduce the main character or something like that. But the Vedas don't wait for such kind of things. They're quite direct in their order. And then comes Suhrit Samhita, our Itihasas and Puranas, basically. The Puranas and Itihasas, they have a different approach, like a friend. See, a friend he just gives an example. He just quotes a story. There was somebody who did like this, therefore, he ended up like this. He was successful. To quote one of my favorite examples is there was a mother who wanted her child to drink milk. The child refused. So, what was the first approach which failed? The first approach of the mother was she gave a direct order to her kid, saying that you must drink milk. So that is Prabhu Samhita basically, because a king usually passes an order. So the Vedas are very direct in their approach. It may not function with every kid. It may not function with everybody. But then comes the Suhrit Samhita, like Itihasas and Puranas, where nowhere in Ramayana, Valmiki said that you have to be dharmic. You should not be adharmic. He never said that. He simply said that, see, this is how Rama was, this is how Ravana was. Baki bhavantah pramanam. For the rest of the things, you yourself are clever enough to understand how you want to be. So they leave it at that point. They don't impose things. They don't dictate things. They just place it very conveniently. They place it. That's why we have so many stories in Ityasas and Puranas. So that is Suhrit Samhita, like how a friend approaches. In the same example, if we continue that same example, uh, the mother will just give the reference to the neighbor kid or somebody, saying that, see, there was once upon a time in Ranchi, Bihar, there was a boy who drank milk every day, and he went on to win World Cup for India. So if you want to be like Dhoni, you need to drink milk, something like that. She makes a reference, an actual reference, not a cooked up reference, an actual reference. When even this doesn't work on many, then there is a third approach called as Kanta Samhita, where most of the kavyas and the related art forms come. They don't talk about the actual thing in the beginning at all. They build a story. They build a storyline. And within that story, there are certain things that are mentioned in such an impactful manner that nobody has to prompt the kid. So what the mother does is, she says she will keep the glass of milk in the kitchen, and she will come out and she will tell the kid that, come here, let me tell you a story. And the kid gets interested. The kid is listening to the story without the kid realizing. It is so much impressed with that story that the kid itself goes to the kitchen, takes the glass of milk and drinks it. That is Kantasam, where it does with love. So that and the word Kanta is very loosely translated as love, but it should have a charm about it. That Kanti, that glow should be there. So that which has a glow about our presentation, then it becomes Kanta Samhita. Again, these are the three forms that exist. Therefore, we cannot argue that only one way of presentation is correct. Only art is correct. Only if I present it in this way, it is correct. No, all three ways are correct. It's just that what impresses whom, what style impresses whom, we don't know. So one should be capable enough to do all of them. That's why we respect Vyasa and Valmiki. That's why they are at the top brass. The reason is, Vyasa, take Vyasa for example, the one who classified the Vedas. He understood how Prabhu Samhita functions. He is the one who gave us the Puranas. So he understood how Suhrit Samhita works. He's also the one who gave us Mahabharata, and he has added all the poetic qualities in it. So he understood the Kanta Samhita as well. So that's the way of, if we are going to write something, ideally it should be a three-pronged attack. It should be Prabhu Samhita, it should be Suhrit Samhita, it should be Kanta Samhita. I
Fantastic.
don't know if it makes sense or not.
It's brilliant.
Okay.
So, can we ask the audience to ask questions so that
I've
sir can...
spoken for 57 minutes now.
Yeah, you must be tired. Meghna, you had some questions? Meghna had shared some questions. Do you want to ask Meghna?
Let me just find those questions. Yeah, so so glad to be asking a question to you, sir. There was one thing like, given the
Sorry,
background.
speak a little louder. I can't hear you.
Sorry, sir, bit of a cold. Can you hear me now? Hello. So given that we have a lot of Puranas going around, where there are books like in say the Ramakrishna Mutt and other places where we have access, giving access to children about knowing a bit about our Upanishad stories or our Purana and Itihasa Kathas. One question I had thought about was, um, like the story of Dharmapada, who had helped in the construction of the Konark temple. Which other childlike figures can we use to explain the Ashtadashavidya Sthanas to young minds?
You mean to say, are there any such young characters in
Like
our...
I do agree that we can talk about Dhruva and Prahalada.
Hmm.
Like if we were to give the young characters, like assign each of the Ashtadasha Vidyasthana one Purana Itihasa characters, would you like let us know more names like these?
It might be slightly challenging to find only one character which represents all the Ashtadasha Vidyasthanas. An embodiment of all Vidyasthanas into one character might be a little too higher and ask. However, we find plenty of such various characters. You can take one from the Upanishads as well, Nachiketa, Uddalaka, Upamanyu. There are plenty of such characters who have displayed their ability to hold. The stories of Upamanyu and all are quite clear on how they gained Vidya through the Guru Shushruksha and all those things. So that can be showed as the key to attain or key to decode Ashtadasha Vidyasthanas. In that way, it can be presented.
So can we make it like each of the Vidyasthanas can have one such character from our Itihasas
It
representing them,
can, it can
if
have,
possible?
it can have. I mean, it has not been presented in that way, is what I'm trying to say. It's like for one Vidyasthana, this is the person. It has not been presented in that way.
Yes, sir.
Therefore, we need to use our discretion to use the characters and qualities and blend them together and present.
Thank you, sir.
Vijayaka?
Oh, she's here. Okay.
Yeah,
Yes.
I came long back. Sir, we had made that list of rishis and devatas,
Ah,
connected devatas and rishis. Have you seen that, sir?
no, not yet, not yet. Sorry, I'll see it this week. I'll see it this week.
If you do this week, then how will they be able to do?
Uh,
I sent that to you so long back
yeah. I'll look into it. I'll look into it.
because I have already shared it with all of them. You have to approve that those are okay.
Okay. Oh, yeah. Definitely. Yeah.
And I don't know, I came in late. Did you give a description of the Veda Purusha, sir?
That was in the last class itself. We had a discussion on.
No. Each Veda has a Purusha, right? One has a ram face, one has Ashwa face.
That one I thought it will be easier if the picture itself is sent. So I have access to that. I will share it very soon.
If you can just share it in Yeah, share it with us. I'll put it in the group.
Yes. Yeah.
But there will be a sloka, alva, so
Yeah,
that.
of course, along with the story.
Okay, along with the sloka. Okay.
It's as a dhyana shloka, so it can be used to construct.
So, I don't know. Did you give one for each of the those Veda Sthanas today?
No.
An example?
No, we discussed on how the darshanas are usually or can be represented. Because
but you said that you would give for each of the sthanas. Last class.
It is very difficult to find exactly that kind of examples for each and every Vidyasthana. For Shiksha, there was one such thing. So
but you also said that each of them has a Purusha.
Not exactly a Purusha, but they will have their unique way of approach. Like how I mentioned for the darshanas, that they have the 4 important pillars. So they all work in that same module. So similarly, each and every Vidyasthana will have a slightly different approach, and that can be discussed. That can be discussed.
So you want to discuss it now?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, the kind of paddhatis that we have is quite evident. For example, we have this paddhati called as Vyuha Chatushtaya. So when we talk about Vyuha Chatushtaya, it's about identifying what is causing the trouble and what the source of the trouble and the way of eliminating the trouble and ensuring that the elimination has happened. This is one approach. It is usually used in medicine. Basically, Ayurveda approaches everything in this format. First is identification of Heya, and then comes Heya Hetu, Hana, and Hanova. So in other texts, like in other branches, we have Adhikarana Paddhati, which has a certain doubt. It all starts with a certain doubt, and then it determines, the doubt actually determines the subject. Once the subject gets determined, there will be 2 sets of arguments presented, and by the churning of these 2 arguments, we arrive at a conclusion. So this is a 5-step process that is used. The idea is when we take the shastras like Vyakarana or Darshanas, so all these things, they can be approached with this methodology. Shiksha and Chandas are mostly more about the pronunciation, more about the application. Therefore, we find some examples like that, and it is more practical in terms of approach. Whereas the other shastras are mostly intellectual, and it requires a mental exercise to be practiced. But when it comes to representation of those methods, if these things can be presented, then it will make more sense. I think that will.
I think these representations will not be easy by visual artists. I mean, like Ayurveda, we have a problem. So, I mean, in a painting, how do you? I mean, you can only show a diseased person and then something like that.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I think maybe the solution will be for them to take the devatas and the rishis that are connected to it, something like that, and maybe the number 18. I don't know. I'm just thinking whether any of those are what you think may work.
That can be, and that's very theoretical, is what I felt. And if we just present Ayurveda in the picture of Dhanvantari, and if you just present Ayurveda with the picture of Dhanvantari, it would just show the Shastra in its seed form. But this will be more of an applied form. But both of them are required. I'm not saying that any one of them is needed.
So now if there's somebody who's doing contemporary kind of art, they can do that. But the ones who are doing the traditional Mysore art and Tanjore art,
For them, yeah.
They can only show the gods. They can't
Yeah.
they can't show anything else. I mean, I've been requesting them at least show some dynamic movement in the back, maybe the wind blowing, maybe Krishna's feather fluttering. At least do that. Don't just do freezes. So even for that, they had some complaint. I said, if an art doesn't keep on slowly morphing within the framework, then suddenly people will be showing football in Mysore art.
No, I think the same thing can be showed in a representative manner. The same methodology can be showed, like for example, how Dhanvantari appears with four hands, what those four hands represent, what all the things that he's holding in his hand represent, how they are responsible for the four-pronged approach that we talked about. In that way, it has to be showed and interpreted. Of course, there is not much room to change the ingredients, change the things that are held by Dhanvantari in his hand. We need to find the connection that what represents what module. That's all.
Mhm. Now, when we say healing, they can even show a tree that is one of the healing trees with the Adidevata of that tree sitting underneath. I mean, there are so many. I mean, if they want to be creative, there's a lot, but they have to read for that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, first and foremost is identifying that we are not just addressing the immediate issue, but we are going to the depth of what is exactly causing it. So Heya and Heya Hetu are very important. Roga and Roga Hetu, to identify what is causing this roga. So that is one portion. Part two will be to find the solution. And that solution can be multi-headed, can be a treat, can be a particular some flowers can be showed. A season can also be showed. So it represents the Rutucharya and all those things as well.
Yeah. I think for Ayurveda, they can show Ritucharya also.
Yeah. And if they read Rutu Samhara of Kalidasa, it gives a very good picture of how each and every season appears. So how the nature itself has got the healing ability throughout the year and throughout the calendar year. That can also be expressed.
Yeah, the important thing is that their write-up should show the connection.
Yes. Yeah.
Their concept notes are important.
Yeah.
Even if they do Dhanvantari, there should be a concept of why they're showing Dhanvantari or the Ashwini Devatas. Nidan Panchaka, somebody has written a...
like Hetu, Purva Rupa, Rupa Samprapti, and Chikitsa. That's, that is more, as you mentioned, the Nidana Panchakam is more application oriented. The one that I mentioned is more theoretical approach. Heya Hetu, which is called as Vyuha Chatushtaya. The same thing can be, it's an extension of the Vyuha Chatushtaya itself. But here it is more focusing on identification of the root cause of the problem and how do we address that one and what approach should we take. So those things are there. So that can be presented as well, absolutely presented as well.
Mm-hmm. Okay, sir, can you, is there some way, I'm sure that every one of the Vidyasanas is connected to, they require the other Vidyasanas. But is there anything where for Kalpa, we definitely need these? For Ayurveda, you definitely need these. Of course, Mimamsa, Nairuta, everything is needed. But basically something that's very important.
Like the entire seed of art is Kalpa. Because Kalpa is where we find the roots of art and everything. Therefore, the way Kalpa talks about how to arrange things or how to create these formations depending upon various devatas, they have different geometrical structures for offering. Like basically yajna kunda, etc., etc. It is not only restricted to yajna kundas, but also it can be taken up to a different level as well, where we see how a certain deity, depending upon a certain deity, how everything else changes, or it is more suitable to the deity. So that idea is taken from Kalpa. That cannot be compromised, so that has to be presented. That is why Kalpa is called as the hands of the Ved Purusha. Because all those creativity comes from.
So now Shilpa Shastra comes under what?
Yeah.
Kalpa.
Yeah.
So Shilpa Shastra and
Chitrakala.
Chitrakala come in this thing.
Yeah.
Dance and music comes under Gandharva
Gandharva
Veda.
Veda.
And theatre also comes in Gandharva Veda.
Gandharva Veda. Yeah.
Okay.
There's another question here. Said in the previous class, like Sushena treating Lakshmana using Sanjeevani, Nala building Setu, symbolizing engineering. It can be showed like that as well. But as I said, we may show these things, but the idea of Veda and Vedanga, how do we represent that this is the portion of Rig Veda? Because there is no such word has been used like saying that this is Rig Veda, this is Yajurveda, or anything like that. At least in Natya Shastra, we have Jagraha Pathyam Rig Veda. So we know that if we identify all the Pathyangsha in any dance recital, then that belongs to Rig Veda. The Abhinaya belongs to Yajurveda. Like this, we have certain specification mentioned in Natya Shastra. Whereas in Ramayana, it will become too difficult to identify, and it will be too much of an experimentation is what my fear is. And if we push it a little further, I mean, these examples are absolutely fine, sir. I totally agree. But the real challenge comes when we have to find certain Vedas and Vedangas. How will we find Shiksha and Chandas? That part is a little challenge.
I mean, it's not necessary that everything should show everything. I mean, somebody can show only the Ayurveda part, somebody can show something else.
Yeah,
so if they show Gurukula, then everything comes there, no?
No, not necessarily. Not necessarily.
I mean, no. If they show a traditional Gurukula that Rama went to, then you would have learnt Siksha, Nairukta, everything.
But again, it will not be an assumed thing. It doesn't represent that exactly what Vidya Sthana that we are talking about.
But that
is an assumed thing.
Yeah, sir, visual art, some of it is all assumed only. And it is what we understand from the picture. I mean, if we go to modern art, nothing.
Then we don't require Ramayana at all. Just put a simple, like, Krishna and Balarama going to Gurukula. So any Gurukula, if we just present any Gurukula,
no, but when somebody is wanting to show, then they're trying to cover Itihasa and Purana with Rama. Yeah, then they're wanting to cover Ayurveda.
Yeah, the title should be not Ashtadashavidya Sthanas. It should be specific.
Yeah.
You cannot say Ashtadashavidya Sthanas like by representing 4 or 5, and the rest you assume. We
can't. In no one painting can anybody show the entire Ashtadashavidya Sthana.
Correct.
The only way they can do it is by writing the name.
Yeah, that's why the title has to be very specific. It says, because he said Ashtadashavidya Sthanas through Ramayana, that will be too huge a task.
Can't we show Shiksha, like when Rama first meets Hanuman in Kishkinda, he says that the words Hanuman use are so precise that there's no excess, no deficiency. Like if Hanuman is speaking to Rama, the words that he uses can be drawn sharply or something like that.
Yeah.
So something like that we can show, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree with you, sir. I'm not disagreeing with you. All I'm saying is, if it is presented, it is
like,
the conversation.
But yeah, we can show just the Vedangas, right? Like not necessarily the entire stuff, like parts of the Ashtadashavidya Sthanas.
Correct. But you mentioned Ashtadashavidya Sthanas. So all 18 might be difficult is what I'm saying. But some of them can be definitely shown. I'm not denying it at all.
You see, Harinarayan, if you think you can find it, you write it in your concept note. When they curate for it, they will tell you.
Sure, ma'am. Sure.
Maybe you will find some way of expressing 18, you do it. So, does anybody else have any questions? The only way to learn here is to ask questions. Then all of you will be quiet now, and then you'll send some strange concept note. And when we say,
kind of spread in a very wrong way, and it should not get diluted. Simplification is only to ensure that there is something. Even though niruktam shrotram uchyate, and I've given a simple example of roots and everything, but that is not the only thing that nirukta does. Nirukta gives the idea of many such words that exist in Vedanta, which are not able to be found or derived through Vyakarana. So for those words, it gives an explanation. That is also part of Nirukta.
Okay, so then can we say that the exact word that Hanuman chooses to please Sita Devi, it eases her and it removes her doubts?
That is pretty much Vyakaranam, sir. Hanuman is a direct representative of Vyakarana.
Okay, so
Hanuman
we can represent him
an embodiment of Vyakarana. Because he was certified as Nava-Vyakarana Pandita. Therefore, Hanuman represents Vyakarana in the most authentic form. So he can be a better representation for Vyakarana Vedanta.
Yes, sir. So yeah, that could be represented.
So that's why I said that the better route to take is where they do the devatas and the connected rishis and more obvious things like that. Because if they try to take any subjective thing, then it will be simplifying everything to without its depth.
Yeah, that is also true. Yeah, devatas is the approach then. I mean, we can have both of them. Where it is very clear, we can have a subjective thing as well.
Yeah.
Where it is slightly difficult, then we can go.
Yeah.
Can you explain the role of Kalpa and Jyotisha? Are they intertwined? Yes, of course, they are intertwined. Jyotisha, as I think in the previous session also I had mentioned, Jyotisha talks about Dik, Desha, and Kala, three important elements. Where it should be done, when it should be done, and what it should be done. What is determined from the Vedas, and when and where is determined by Jyotisha. Whereas Kalpa determines how it should be done. So the when, where, and how is of all the activities mentioned in Veda are given to us by Jyotisha and Kalpa. Hence, they are intertwined.
Again, I want to ask a small doubt.
Yeah.
Like in Valmiki Ramayana again, I just want to know whether Hanuman waited for the right time to enter Lanka before he chose.
Yeah, he did wait.
So that can be coming under Jyotisha time.
To an extent, yes. And there are plenty of other instances in Ramayana.
We can say Pushpaka Vimana also, right?
Sorry?
Pushpaka Vimana.
Pushpaka Vimana, like
because it's traveling according to the cosmic direction.
That is not mentioned in Ramayana.
Oh, Pushpaka Vimana itself is not mentioned.
Yeah, Pushpaka Vimana is mentioned. Pushpaka Vimana traveling according to its own accord, etc., is not mentioned.
Okay.
But there are plenty of other instances of Jyotisha that are very outrightly clear in Ramayana, which can be taken up.
Okay.
For example, one can do an entire book on the Nimittas and Shakunas mentioned in Ramayana. Nimittas and Shakunas are also indicators of the right and the wrong time. So that collection is there both in Ramayana as well as in Mahabharata.